Oh, hey, welcome back. I'm Courtney, and this is the Accounting Struggle. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you being here. I first want to say thank you to everyone who attended my session at the NABA Eastern Region Student Conference in Baltimore, Maryland, a couple weeks ago. I really enjoyed speaking on the topic. I spoke on non-positional leadership, and if you were someone who really got something from that and came up to me and talked to me afterwards, I really appreciate you. It was so great meeting you. And so thank you. Shout out to NABA for allowing me to present. That was really great. So yeah, I missed you guys. Let's go ahead and get into it. I had someone request that I do a video about getting started in public account or just in accounting in general. There were a lot of things that when I think back on my beginning of my career, it's not really back that far, but there are a lot of things in hindsight that I wish I would have just done from the beginning. And jump starting my career, a lot of things that I wish I would have done differently. So I wanted to make a quick little list of things that you should do when you first start out in your career in accounting that I think would be helpful. This is not exclusive to public accounting, but that was the start of my career. This is the time of year where public accounting jobs start. It is October, it is fall. Most jobs start in the fall for whatever reason. So this is the time that I thought I should share this. If you are working in industry, this video should still be helpful. But these are some of the basic principles or things that I wish I would have done right at the beginning of my accounting career. So the first thing I would say is when you first come on board and you start your new job, it's very exciting. You probably have in your mind a plan of how you think it's going to work out, but you should definitely make a progress target sheet. When you figure out and sit down with your seniors and your managers and the partners or whoever, you should just first determine what progress would look like. So by X amount of time, I should be here. And by X amount of time, I should be here. And these are things that you should set realistic expectations for. So you want to make sure you're actually speaking to a partner or someone who is going to be doing your review, basically. So that you have a good idea of where you should be at certain points in your career. The reason why it's important to consult with someone in the firm or even in HR is just because you will probably have unrealistic targets for yourself. I know when I came on board, I had the expectation that, I'm new. It should take maybe 90 days to kind of get brought up to speed on everything, and by then I should be killing it. And that is so unrealistic, and that is not how it happened at all. It was probably 90 years that went by and I still wasn't killing it. So definitely sit down with someone in the firm to determine where you should be, and it should be very tracked. So you want to make your own personal target sheet based on that. So by 6 weeks out, I should be here. 2 months out, I should be here, and just keep doing that throughout the year so that way you're tracking your progress and you know that you're doing what you need to be doing as the time progresses. And always ask for feedback to determine if that progress is really being made, because again, it's not something that you can just think of on your own. You're not the one that's going to be doing your own evaluation at the end of the year, so you need to be sitting down discussing this with someone who will be doing your evaluation. Make a progress target sheet. That is the first thing I think you should do. The next thing is there are a lot of administrative things that you need to do that you are responsible for, and specifically in public accounting, there are little things like keeping track of your billable hours and keeping track of your CPE. How many hours do I have? How many more do I need? Even if you haven't passed the CPA exam yet, some firms will require that you meet a certain amount of CPE, continuing professional education courses or credits each year. Even if you're not a CPA yet, it's a requirement once you are a CPA, but even if you're not, a lot of public accounting firms have their own goals and targets for you to meet. So those types of things are things that might not be on your radar when you first start. It might not be a part of your onboarding task or things that you are being told you need to keep track of. So that's something that when you first get in, sit down with maybe somebody, your buddy or your senior, someone who has been there at least a year and some change, that has an idea of all the little things that you are maybe not thinking of that you'll need to know, like, oh, well, once a year you need to have X amount of billable hours, which that's a big one. They'll most likely tell you exactly how many you need to have, but how do you track that? That's something that you need to determine how you're going to track that. What is the best way to keep up with it? And also trainings. What are the required trainings? When do I have to go? Do I have to book my own room? Like all of that administrative stuff that you maybe aren't thinking about because you're so overwhelmed with just figuring out how to do your job. Those are the types of things that you want to make sure you nail down when you first start. Just talk to somebody who's already been through a year so that they can give you a rundown of the things you'll need to be keeping track of and doing on your own. The third thing you need to do is, this one is very important, and this is one of the key things that I really, really, really wish I would have done early on in my career, but I just didn't even think about it or understand the significance or the importance of it. But you really need to find yourself a good mentor. It needs to be a mentor-mentee relationship, one that is agreed upon, not just someone where you're like, I'm just going to always hit this person up whenever I have questions. It needs to be someone who actually knows they're your mentor. Someone preferably who is in the exact same field. So if you're in audit, you want to find yourself an audit associate who is willing to be your mentor. They don't have to work at the same firm as you, but this needs to be a person who can guide you. This needs to be someone who has done the same work as you, who's been where you are at each stage. They can relate and they can give you advice on how you can not only do your job well, but how you can progress to the next stage of your career. So it needs to be someone who's obviously doing well in their position, in their career, and someone who can help you and just basically mentor you throughout the process of you getting started. And it's important to find this in the beginning of your career because, you know, once you look up 2 or 3 years in, a lot of mistakes could have been avoided if you would have had someone who was guiding you or just someone to go to. Some of the things that I feel like I could have benefited from for if I would have had a mentor would be literally just things like this. Someone who was maybe telling me, oh, make sure you track your hours, make sure you get your, you are staying on top of your progress and you know exactly how well you're doing. Make sure you check in with your partner every 6 months or every however many weeks just to determine if you're doing well with your progress. Those types of conversations would have been super beneficial. Now your firm, if you're starting out in public accounting, they'll assign you like a buddy or pal, but you need someone who is actual mentor even beyond that, because that is helpful because you need someone who's directly working with you to tell you certain things or to go to for questions. But your mentor is someone who's more of a career guide, not someone you just ask questions to when you're not sure about how to do a particular task. But make sure it's someone who's doing well in their role, in their career as an accountant, and they can really give you the type of guidance that you'll need to be able to succeed in your current position and progress to the next stage. You can look outside of your own firm for that. Look at people who went to the same school as you, people who you maybe have met in professional accounting networks. Like I'm a member of NABA, the National Association for Black Accountants. I'm also a member of the VSCPA, which is the Virginia Society of CPAs. So there's a lot of people in my network who are also accountants who I can look to, and I'm always in environments where I'm able to mingle with these people. So utilize those types of resources to determine who will be a good fit for being your mentor. And it needs to be someone who you can trust, who you feel has your best interest at heart. This should be someone who you feel comfortable going to with your concerns, someone who you trust to really give you the type of guidance that's going to push you along in your career. The next thing is make yourself a resource guide. When I first started out, it was all like so much trial and error. I definitely could have used even just the first couple of months. I could have just put together a spreadsheet of like, oh, I found this website to be really helpful, or oh, this person who works in this department is the person I ask these type of questions to. And I wasn't doing that. Everything was just kind of like as I went along, and maybe not really writing the stuff down or not keeping track of who helped me with certain things, and then always having to say, well, how do I get this or how do I do that? If you make yourself a resource guide and it's something that you're building on throughout your time in your career, that will be really helpful, and it'll trim down on a lot of your mistakes. There should be people who are like champions in your company and your firm who are specific, who have a specific expertise or knowledge, who can answer certain questions, or who are the go-to people for certain topics. So make sure you know who those people are, so that way when you have a certain type of client that you're working on, if you have a certain type of situation where you need advice or some guidance, you know to go to that person. And this doesn't have to just be limited to people resources or human resources. This can easily just be websites. Make a list of all the websites that you are finding helpful and for what reason. I mean, it's one thing to bookmark them, but you should be able to go in and say, when I'm looking for, and you can just put this in your notes. I like using OneNote, so that way you can just search like, okay, what's the best guide for taxation issues related to depreciation or something like that. And you can know exactly where you should look for those types of things. So just as you're going along, when you find a resource to be helpful, whether that be a person or a website or even just a YouTuber who does amazing like Excel tutorials or any of that stuff that you feel like can add value to your skills as an accountant, make sure you're tracking those resources and keep that stuff in a guide, so that way you can share it with other people who are coming in, for one, and you can use it, you know, throughout your career. But it would be great if someone's like, do you know how I can do X, Y, and Z? And you maybe don't know how to do it, but you can tell someone in your firm how to find that same resource. So just keep track of helpful resources, make yourself a little guide, and I think that will save you a lot of time going forward. The last thing that I really wish that I would have done in starting out in accounting, this is something I've struggled with a lot, but when I first started out, I did not show myself any grace. I was so hard on myself and my expectations were very unrealistic. That is one of the reasons why you need to set realistic expectations for yourself when you're first starting out, and don't make up in your mind where you think you should be. Because I came down on myself every time I did something wrong. Anytime I was not doing well in a certain area, I dwelled on it. I didn't show myself enough grace, or I wasn't realistic with myself about where I should be. So everything felt like an exaggerated mistake, and everything was, oh my God, they're gonna fire me. I can't believe I did this wrong. And it would be like, girl, it's not even that serious. People mess this up all the time. The most important thing is that you're making progress with your mistakes. So you're making fewer mistakes, you're not repeating the same mistakes over and over again, and you're learning from the mistakes that you've made. That's what's most important. But you have to go into your career knowing that you don't know everything. You don't know most things. So you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Show yourself some grace. I would even ask, you know, how long should it take before I get to your point? Or I would ask this to partners, how long should it take before I feel like I know what I'm doing? And they would say at least a year. At least a year. Your first year in public accounting specifically, you are just learning. That's it. That's all you're doing. You're learning. You're not this is not even about being like the best or even specializing. At that point, you're literally just learning. So give yourself the space to learn. When you mess up, not if, but when you mess up, learn from it. Apply that to your next task, what you've learned, and make sure you're helping people along the way, so that way they don't make the same mistakes you've made. Make sure you're sharing that information as you go along, and just give yourself some grace. Even if you're not in public accounting, you still are learning. You're walking into a new space, a new world. So you are going to need some time to really nail down new concepts and learn the business of your company. So just give yourself the space and opportunity to do those things. So those are my 5 things that I wish I knew when I first started out, or that I wish I did when I first started out in accounting. I really hope that these are tips that you find helpful. If there's anything you can think of, maybe this is your second or third year, what are some things that you did or didn't do that you wish you did when you first started out, and why? I want to know. I want to hear from you. So leave me a comment, and don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And yeah, visit The Accounting Struggle. I'm posting videos like this regularly, so if there's anything else that I can help with, any topics that I have not covered, please let me know, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.